Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Friends, we are halfway done with Andor.
Ooh.
Season 2 Andor is halfway over. We are 3/4 of the way through all of Andor, and I'm joined by Where is Jimmy and a sapphic love affair, also known as Alex and Aaron, to talk about it. Folks, what do we think of this week's episodes?
Insane. Just everything. I don't know. At the end of the episode there, I was like, I thought we were wrapping up one storyline. I was like, it just all happened so fast. But yeah, I really liked that we got kind of some rebel scheming going on. The Gormans are very naive. And I like that Cassian went there and he was like, hell no, I'm staying out of it. I'm staying the hell out of this. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I like the kind of the layers we get into on this episode. We're seeing kind of just how before there was like, we've only ever seen like the consecrated rebellion working together, but like this is like subterfuge to the umpteenth degree. I mean, I guess like we saw a little bit of like a cell working by itself, obviously in the Rebels season 1, but like this is like next level, like infiltration and seeing how basically Andor it's a spy show, which is incredible in the Star Wars universe. And I also really did appreciate I'm really enjoying like the role that Ciro is playing in all of this. This like double agent that I'm like suspicious of. I'm like, is he actually gonna like turn like towards the Gorman side at the end of all this? Is he gonna remain a little Imperial lap boy to Daedra? Like, I don't know. It's just like his character is very interesting to me right now. So is the ISP's general involvement in all of this.
The phrase "turn out the lights" is one that I'm going to remember for a long time.
I warned you. What I said to you in that episode was they described the relationship as weird and spicy.
Oh, I guarantee you that the number of fan fictions that have already been posted under the title "Turn Out the Lights" is legion, and will continue to be many more, and they will all be very disturbed. But let's kind of go through this one by one. So let's start with kind of our main plot line. We talked about last time, the first 3 episodes, Cassian was kind of a side character as we were getting all the pieces ready. Now I think you're right. He's very much to the forefront. And he's kind of at the heart of this main storyline of him and Bix. First of all, we start off with him and Bix as clearly they are together. They are partners in crime. They are partners in the bedroom and in life. And how did you guys feel just getting to see them? Like, there's no more like chasing after people named Tim or things like that. There's no more like will they, won't they. We're just straight up having fun with them.
It was really sweet. Here's the thing, the start of it was like really sweet, and I was like, yes. And then Bix was like, having trouble sleeping, but I was like, but they're together and they're so cute. And then he left, and then she kind of like started spiraling, and I was like, oh, but also relatable and kind of valid. Not healthy, but valid.
Yeah, I kept thinking the whole time, I was like, they're cute, but also this relationship felt extremely unhealthy to me.
Extremely.
Just like Andor being... Go ahead, Aaron.
Every time that he went, did I do something wrong? I was like, it made me so mad, because it's like the amount of times that it's like, no, it's not about you. Like, I'm explaining the way that I feel. Like, shut up and listen. And I just, some of their interactions, I agree, Alex, just felt very like not healthy and red flaggy to an extent.
I mean, Andor felt like he's trying to almost not control her, but like he's like, I understand it's coming from a place of concern about her, but it's manifesting in a controlling boyfriend kind of way. And I don't know, like both of them just seem like they're like, obviously they're deeply trauma bonded. But I'm curious, since next episode is a year later, what the relationship looks like a year later.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I found the relationship incredibly relatable from my side, unfortunately, from the Cassian side. And the word that's blinking in big red letters for me is codependence.
Yep.
And I look at Cassian as someone who, like, he has found value after, like, not really being a person who valued, like, himself, and, like, he kind of found himself in his ability to help others and to take care of others, and then wasn't there, cannot save his sister, wasn't there to save his mother, and oh look, here's another woman who loves him who he can save. And he's very much in that, like, yeah, his intentions are good, and the reality, the impact is bad. He's just kind of like feeding into a lot of things and not helping her much until the end when he's like, I don't know whether it's her idea or his idea, but they're just like, well, we could be sad about all the people who've traumatized you, or we could just go traumatize and murder one of them. And I don't think that's going to be in the DSM-5 in any kind of things, but like there's some therapeutic aspects, certainly cathartic. And I'm kind of hopeful that we're going to see them in a better place by next year. Given it's Tony Gilroy, probably not, because I don't think he ever wants us to be happy. But it did feel like him by the end, like we see her, I think it was very intentionally shot, that scene at the end where she goes in, she finds the guy who tortures her, she literally tortures him in the same way, and then they just make him explode. The whole building explode. And like, did you guys expect to see him there? Were you surprised to see him there?
See Andor there or see the doctor?
To see Andor there.
Yeah. So my one, I'm not going to call it an issue. Slight gripe of this scene is it felt a little just thrown in there. Like, I thought it was like really interesting and it like opens up all these new questions. And I think that like the downside of you're trying to like do like every year you're trying to like tell these stories that like you have to like kind of go a little bit faster than season 1 did. And so to me, like I felt like if it had just ended with with Luthen and Clay like walking out and being like, we should have killed Chronicle, we were up there, fade to black, I feel like that would have been like a more normal ending for me. But like this was just like, oh, now we're murdering the doctor.
It just kept going.
That's crazy. Like after not seeing, like only seeing the doctor in her dreams, and suddenly they're murdering him. And like after she killed him, seeing Andor there almost felt like it almost made me feel the relationship was even more codependent than I thought it was in the first place. It's like, oh, now they're doing murder together. Sick.
I mean, what's a little murder between lovers? You got to spice things up.
Let me explain the way that I watched this scene. It's dark. I see this man walking up. I'm watching on my phone. So for a second, I thought it was Lonnie, but then I figured out it wasn't, obviously. And then like the light, he walked in, there was a woman behind him. I was like, oh, he turned around. I was like, oh, Dr. Gorst. And then I thought to myself, I was like, I think Bix is cracking. Like, I think she like drugged up and is like tweaking right now. But then I looked at her and I was like, no, like a tweaker could not do this. Like, this is some sophistication. She's clearly sober, in my opinion. And I was like, okay, so she's just like doing her own thing, just taking care of her own nightmares, I guess. And I thought it was like a bad bitch moment. And then Cassian came in. And honestly, because I'm a sucker for a love story, I was like, ah, they're murdering together. Or more, I was just like, I was happy to see him supporting her in her thing.
Right.
Is what I kind of grabbed from that scene. And I was like, damn, like that. The end of that episode was crazy. Because first Vel tears this guy up. And then we get, like you said, Clea and Luthen talking about killing
Krennic.
Thank you. And then it's just like murder.
Yeah.
And love. What?
Yeah, I'm kind of of two minds about it. First, just on what it was itself. I'm very much with you, Aaron. It felt to me like the whole thing, part of that codependence is his idea of how she has to be helped, which I think often feeds into a kind of subconscious, but still there, of like she has to stay needing to be helped because that's why she needs me kind of thing. And again, all that subconscious, I'm not saying it's there in the forefront of his brain, but like, so him recognizing that this is what she needs, this is what she wants, and him supporting her really felt like a flip from where he was for earlier in the season. And I really liked that, especially with it was like, when he's totally invalidating what she wants, even to the point of going to blame Luthen for like offering her these chances that he doesn't think she should be offered. What I do agree with you, but I do agree with you, Alex, it felt a little out of nowhere. It felt to me like there was a couple of other scenes we saw of her like asking Luthen for information about how to find him, or her like telling Andor, what I need is to go do this, and him saying, no, that's not good. Like something, it felt like this was the culmination of a storyline that got left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, that's how I
And
felt as well.
That wasn't the best, but I did feel like we could sort of fill in those gaps ourselves.
No, for sure, for sure. I just think that it was because the only other time he was mentioned by like not in the dreamscape was like the brief conversation that was had at ISB headquarters where oh my god, what's the old guy's name?
Oh, like Partridge.
Pendergast?
What, Matthew?
Pendergast?
Pendergast, yeah, that's him. Yep. Pendergast basically was like the Emperor sees the Doctor's skills and like he's going to be being used and more beyond just the ISB. And so like you're thinking you're going to see the Doctor in like some other role somewhere, like doing more evil interrogations, and then he's just offed. I was like, oh,
Right.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I kind of liked it. I'm going to be honest. I think like one, there's something to be said for the shock factor. Whether you like it or don't like it, there's that. I love it. So I very much was okay with the scene kind of being like, because I kind of saw it as like, okay, we're wrapping up everybody for the end of this year. You know, all the last big things have to happen. And it's like, yeah, we don't have time. Or it's like, in my interpretation, it was also like Cassian and Bix are doing this on their own.
Right.
Like they are not consulting Luthen. They are not doing this with other people. This is them doing a rogue thing to take care of her thing. Because Luthen would probably never approve that.
Right.
Like, why would he? Like,
More and more
that's
people are
too
getting
bold, you
fed
know?
up
Like,
with Luthen, though.
exactly.
More and more people are getting. I think Luthen's going to get offed at some point by someone.
Good point. Most likely.
And I think that is a really good point, though, from both of you there, because, yeah, I think one of the real. Why are you kind of acting surprised I said that?
No, sorry. I just had a thought. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I do think it's a great thought because, yeah, one of the real themes, I think, of this whole season, but especially of this arc, was about, like, the difference between your personal fight versus the larger fight. You know, and that's a theme that's even talked about in Rogue One about, like, you know, are you here to save your father? Are you here to get revenge? Or are you here to, like, help the rebellion? And I really liked how that played out. Aaron, you had a thought I think you wanted to jump in with.
It was on a different subject. It's what I want to talk about next.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Just something about this reminded me of that, and we hadn't addressed it yet.
Sure, let's go into it. What's next?
Okay, can we talk about Willman and Saw?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What the fuck was that? Because at first I was like, damn, he's in trouble. And then I was like, damn. You know, Saw, anything with Saw, it's no, there's no rules, you know? You never know what's going to happen. So I'm glad he lived.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Saw was like, oh, I inhaled this really weird toxic substance and it burns my skin and it feels good, but it kills other people. And then Willman did it too. I was like, I don't understand that though.
So they're inhaling rhydonium.
Yeah.
Which we've seen in various other Star Wars properties. It's a super explosive, dangerous shit.
Right, that's the stuff they steal in Solo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, is it? It is. You're right. It is the same thing in Solo. Yeah. And what was interesting to me is that, like, it sounds like Saw is having a fucking trip during his. I mean, his speech was somehow so nonsensical, but also made me want to go fight for him at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, you have his presence. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go fight the Empire right now. Let's go. But also, he was being there like, I inhale this because it's like it's my sister, and it's like I love this, and it just like it gets me, and I'm like, what the fuck are you saying right now? But like it was very Saw Gerrera, like making absolutely no fucking sense to me at all, but still make me want to go die for him. It was crazy.
I mean, first of all, just in terms of like Clone Wars love, this is the first call out of his sister in live action.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a really awesome thing. Kind of, if you haven't seen that, there's a whole Onderon plot line like with him and his sister in Clone Wars. Definitely worth watching.
We'll
so
discuss
that was
it
just kind of nice to make that connection. If only we could discuss some other people's sisters like Bo-Katan at some point, but that's another story. But also it felt to me like it was also very intentional of like, here's another person who's been traumatized and is using their trauma to drive them in the war. And no, they're not the pillar of mental health and they're a little bit cracked, but maybe you need to be a little bit cracked to make this kind of rebellion work. Particularly when we're looking at against Mon Mothma, who has gone through some really hard shit, to be sure. and kind of sacrificing her daughter, and I think it's going on there, but I think isn't yet at this point that Saw is, and that Bix clearly is, and Cassian is, and I think we're gonna kind of learn Luthen is. So yeah, I just loved that, and I thought that whole scene. The one thing that confused me was, so he's kind of having Willman like help train this other guy, but then at the end he shoots the other guy and says, "Willman, you're my guy,"
Yeah.
and says the other guy was a traitor. And in the moment, it felt to me like, no, that was 100% Saw just being like, I can only let one of these people live for security reasons, so I'll tell everyone else the other guy was a traitor, because this other guy is so like weak-willed, and it's like, oh, I can only do this one particular way. Why don't I just keep Willman? And then later, I read an episode summary that was like, yeah, they discovered that the other guy's a traitor. Did you think that was real, or was that Saw just being like, no, I can only keep one of these guys?
So I had the first gut reaction that you did, Matthew, but then like I thought about it for a minute afterwards, and like I realized that like the dude who's being trained had like specifically requested, he's like, I need to focus on one thing, and like Saw gave him a target, and then that target was then leaked. I was like, oh wait, so Saw suspected he was a spy earlier, and like basically gave him false information to leak to the Empire. So like to me, it was like showing that Saw is so paranoid that he is like 9 steps ahead of everyone else. But initially, I thought the same thing, that like it was all just a big ruse.
Okay, yeah, that I was missing that piece, but you're right, that totally connects it.
I agree with you, Alex. Like that's exactly what I thought, because I was like, ain't no way. He was like traitor, and I was like, is that because he was like being a bitch? Like
that is something Saw
he
would kill you over, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
And then like Two Tubes went up there, and I was like, oh, Two Tubes is planting the evidence. Like, yeah, he's gonna get the proof.
Right.
But then when they said the thing about like, oh, this place has been like leaked, or like we got murmurs of like imperial activity increasing or something like that, I was like, I remembered before how he was like, the entire episode, whenever that guy was around, he was asking about that shit, you know?
Right.
He was like, but what about? Like, where am I going? It's just too much to memorize. Like,
okay. You guys do have me convinced.
Yeah.
I totally caught on to that. And then just the way that Saw did the whole thing, I immediately was like, damn, Saw. And then I kind of like remembered the background. And then when Saw mentioned
like,
what happened, I was like,
Saw.
Yeah.
Damn. I was like, he really is 10 steps ahead. Like, goddamn.
And it is still like in keeping with Saw, that's not enough proof for a jury of his peers. Like, very circumstantial evidence, but enough that he can be like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill him, and that's very much what Saw does, which I appreciate. Not like I'm saying it's right. I'm saying that's Saw, and that's what you're doing.
It's accurate to character.
Right. I also do love that. I think what we're supposed to imply is that the Redonium and like his thing about that probably has something to do with the fact that he can't breathe normal air by the time we get to Rogue One, and he needs the kind of like Darth Vader-esque breathing apparatus that he's using.
Possibly how he even lost his legs. Like, to just, I don't know, maybe.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is he huffing shit? Because this would explain a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It would explain a lot.
It's a Star Wars version of paint thinner.
Yeah.
Literally.
I did think it was a little of a tease that I was a little sad about, that they showed us that like Saw has X-Wings as part of his group.
Yeah.
And like we saw like the X-Wings fly off and the X-Wings parked, and I was like, oh, we're gonna get X-Wing fighting? And then we didn't. So maybe we'll get that next year.
Maybe we'll get that next year.
But we're building up to it. But let's now talk about the Gorman of it all, because we kind of have, so first Cassian goes to Gorman. We basically have like 3 different things that happen on Gorman. We have, as you mentioned, Cyril goes to Gorman, and at first acts like he's kind of trying to help them, that he's frustrated, but of course he's just being a great double agent. We have Cassian who goes there and is like, no, these people are just kind of silly. I'm not going to work with them. And then we have Val and Sintra go there and get to have their sapphic love affair rekindled, and they get help. They help, and then of course they basically prove that Andor was right, because they're amateurs and they fuck up, and Sintra gets killed. What do we think of all the Gorman plot lines?
Well, first off, again, like I said before, I thought Cyril was like, especially in the beginning, I was like, damn, is Cyril gonna like turn on the Empire? Like, did he go to Gorman, get away from Daedra, and like Homeboy is gonna be a double agent for the rebellion? And I still think there is an outside chance he could eventually like do the right thing. Like, he to me is the top candidate to fuck the ISB a little bit. But he also, I think, is kind of just like Daedra's like little little lapdog right now. But either
Mhm.
way, I thought his role was really interesting because he was feeding this information to the rebels. Um, and the Gormans are so like just immediately willing to accept this information. I feel like if it was like Andor or Luthen, or there would have been like so many more layers had to go through before they accepted this information as factual. And it showed the Gormans like, inexperience, and the inexperience eventually led to, you know, since his death and just a lot of the fuckery that goes on. And Andor, he was. I mean, to be fair, Luthen like didn't trust Andor. Andor was like, we should not be getting involved here, like at all.
Right.
No one trusted him, but Andor is right as always.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much there to unpack. Like there's more of the kind of like, yes, everyone wants to fight the Empire, but a lot of them are stupid or incompetent, which is more of the kind of like obviously commentary on kind of like modern like online left spaces and stuff like that, but also just a really good story about like how rebellions are built, and there are people who are kind of professionals at it, and some people who really really aren't. And I again like I kind of had a like you go boy moment with Cyril because I mean obviously he's doing terrible things, but like we'd seen him last time being so like brutalized by his mother, and he's kind of just hiding and flopping onto the bed while his girlfriend is defending him. And now he's like flipped that around because he's like, I'm gonna let my mother harangue me because it's gonna be the thing that lets the rebels hear me, because it's like, how could he not? He must really believe this stuff if he's willing to have his mother just rip him a new one because of the stuff he believes. And I thought that was just so brilliant and such great writing that
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of like found an empowerment in this relationship he's got with his mother. I mean, for shitty reasons. I'm like, you go, boy, you imperialist fascist bastard. But like, I just thought that was such a great character moment.
And also he in his conversation with his mother, the thing that also makes me feel a little like iffy about Cyril is just that like he literally tells his mother like stop watching so much imperial news, like stop watching the imperial propaganda is what he basically says to his mom. And so I'm like, why are you telling your mom to stop watching the imperial propaganda? Like maybe like I don't know, maybe he just doesn't fully buy into all of it, or maybe he just knows how stupid it is. But I thought it was really funny that the imperial news channel was called Good Morning Coruscant. I don't know if any of y'all caught that. Actually, it was
Mm-hmm.
fucking hilarious to me. Good
Yeah.
morning, America. Good morning, Coruscant. Okay.
Real on the nose. Yeah. There was a lot in those that kind of storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I always like how Cassian schools people.
Yeah.
Just like teaches people that they're like shit at being rebels or shit at being sneaky or shit at staying alive in dire
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. And he's so smug about it. I think it's kind of funny. But also, like we kind of said, like he was right. Like he saw the red flags and was like, we can't get involved with this. Like this isn't going to go well. And Luthen was like, I'll get somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn it. I loved seeing Val and Cinta back together again.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know more about Cinta and her accident. I'm going to think about that just late at night some days,
Mm-hmm.
wondering. Yeah, so that was really tragic. But Cyril, I don't know what I think of that guy right now. I really can't make, because he was so, like you said, he's kind of like more empowered. The way he threw a fit when his office was being inspected was really funny. Not funny, but I was like, okay, damn. But then they were like, so you're being arrested. And I was like, oof.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think so far I don't think Cyril is in any danger of like falling out of love with the Empire. I think to
Yeah.
me all of that is feigned. All of that is I'm putting on this mask so the rebels will hear it, and get back of it.
Yeah.
To me, the one thing I think that might send Cyril back to the rebels is I don't think it's going to be like, oh, I have sympathy for the Gormans or something like that. It's that there is that moment when Dedra's talking to her superiors, and they're like, well, yeah, there's this whole larger part of this that you can't let him, meaning Cyril, know.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he finds out that Dedra has kind of like been like playing him or fucking him over, that might send him back. But it's gonna be much more like hell hath no fury, like a small scrawny nerd scorned, rather than like he's got rebel sympathies or something.
I could definitely see that. I don't feel like their relationship is going to last or be good.
Mm-hmm.
Turn out the lights, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Relatable.
Crazy.
Relatable, you know, if you have
You
a
can
long
stay for 1
distance.
hour.
And
He's
so
like,
what
what
is
should we
with that?
do?
Because part of it seems like they want to keep it very much on the DL. They don't want anyone else knowing. Um, do you think that's the like? Because it definitely seems like Pendergast knows. Like, the feeling I get is that she wants Cyril to believe that they like have to keep it a secret as a way of kind of making it like I feel like she's very much using him in a way that he is more fond of her. But maybe she's just as into it. I don't know.
I think she's into it, but I think she has to also be in full control of him to be into anyone. That's just her
Yeah.
personality type.
That makes
I
sense.
could see that.
Big time, like just dominant.
Yeah.
Real quick, I know we kind of got off the topic, but I forgot to just mention something. Did
Mhm.
y'all pick up that the base that Saw Gerrera and all of them were on is the same base that we see in Force Awakens? It's the car. It's the same planet. It's the base that the General Leia, then General Leia Organa, and the Resistance used in Episode 7. Just a little fun fact that
Ooh.
Oh,
I
that's
wasn't
pretty cool.
100% sure. I thought so, and I looked it up, and it was indeed that. Just wanted to throw that out there.
I
Hell
love
yeah.
that. I love
And
that.
then on the Gorman front, did anyone pick up on the Tarkin stuff that was being talked about?
Yes, and
That's
that
an
Yeah.
EU concept.
yeah, that's a big deal, and a lot of people I know like I've been hammering on this theme for a while that I think we're bringing back a lot of EU stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way they did it. I think there've been some people concerned that like Mon Mothma's thing kind of makes Tarkin stuff on Gorman kind of go away. It's like decanonizing this, and they basically found a way to like thread the needle and be
Yep.
like, no, both of those stories are canonical, even this one from the EU. And I thought that's like it's kind of nice to the fans of the EU to like bring more of that back, and also just shows they're really thinking about this.
Yeah, and for
Yeah.
those who are a little confused potentially right now, just briefly, basically in the expanded universe, the Gorman massacre existed, and it was basically where Grand Moff Tarkin like landed his cruiser on a crowd of like peaceful protesters and killed a bunch of innocent people. And you know the way that my Mothman been talking about it, everyone's like, "Oh, this is a much larger massacre," and like obviously the Emperor had been pulling the strings on it. So everyone thought the Tarkin massacre was just being thrown away, but they found a way to have the Tarkin massacre happen, have the Gormans kind of mourn it, and have that be like a major fuel for their desire to rebel, and still have the larger Gorman massacre occur afterwards.
Yeah, and they did it in a way that is, I think, very intentionally very reminiscent of the people who were like, screw it, I'm just going to drive through these BLM protests and who cares who I kill and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Aaron, you briefly mentioned what happens with Val and Sintra. Let's get back to that storyline. Because I wound up being very conflicted about it because like I know people have to die, and I did appreciate like we don't get many same-sex relationships in fiction and especially not in Star Wars. We've been getting more in the books and the shows, but not really too many in live action. And one thing I did appreciate is that Luthen clearly just doesn't want people in relationships. Like it has nothing to do with the fact that it
Yeah.
was two women. He's like, Bix and Andor, stop sleeping with each other. Val and Sintra, stop sleeping with each other. You should all be about the rebellion, nothing but that. Which I think is partly because he clearly has burned any personal relationships he has. He has a little bit with Khalil, the kind of the person he works with at the gallery, but at least it's kind of a basic to both of them. But yeah, it was heartbreaking watching the two of them get to reconnect, hearing them like talk about like yes, Luthen's trying to keep us apart, but this is about more than that. But whereas Bix and Andor get to have kind of a happy, screwed up, murdering explosion endings, Sintra gets killed, and I'm with you. I thought Val's speech there was so heartbreaking because she could have just shot the guy. Like she could have just been like, "Fuck it, you got her killed. You did kill her. You're dead." And instead, she gives him this speech that's like heartbreaking and hitting him so hard, but it's also like, you're going to keep fighting. You're going to keep being part of the rebellion, and you have to carry this now. You have to make this right. Not even make this right, but you have to carry this guilt the rest of your life.
Yeah, it was intense. The way that she started off, I mean, first of all, she was like, "Look at me." She was like, "No, look at me. There's nowhere else to look. Like, literally look at me because you can't run away from this ass whooping."
Right.
Like this verbal evisceration.
Mm-hmm.
And started off with like the guilt stuff, and then she went on this like kind of beautiful speech about Cinta herself,
Yeah.
and all that she was. And she was a miracle, but she was a warrior. And she's everything that you've ever daydreamed about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just such beautiful things to say about a person. Intertwined with so much like anger and rage. It was just honestly like a beautiful performance. And I feel like a really well written like speech. And it shows like the amount of self-control that Vel has and
Yeah.
her ability to like let her emotions out in a way, but keep it together and make it like a moment for another person.
Yeah.
Like, make sure this fucker never forgets. Except she said, I'm not going to tell you you're never going to forget because I know you won't.
Right.
And you do too. Like, she's going to follow you the rest of your fucking life. And you got to deal with it.
Tony Gilroy knows how to write a fucking monologue.
He does.
He really does. He
Like,
really does.
my God. But it's interesting because there was definitely foreshadowing because in the initial meeting, she said at least 5 times, no one can have a blaster. No one can have a blaster besides me and Cinta. No, everyone has to follow. Like, she made it so clear, like everyone has to follow orders. And she kept looking at him, and it was so clear he was gonna fuck up somehow.
Yeah, she tried to out Chekhov it, but Chekhov's law
the part
came out in the end.
confused me only was that like the dude, the random civilian dude that like had gotten in the fight with the guy who ends up shooting Cinta. Why is he the one that goes and carries her body?
I liked that actually because they showed him earlier on Gorman, you know, being like low-key problematic and like having all the right ideas of like, yeah, like we're being choked and no one's doing anything about it, and we can't keep ignoring it.
Right.
But just taking it to a place of like whipping the crowd into a frenzy and kind of like inciting fear and stuff like that. And it was not productive. And, you know, they kind of like had him go down. So I was kind of like, wow, this guy's a fucking dick. Like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
And I like to see like that. I like to think it's like this happened. And like, he also, of course, like carries some guilt and will join the rebellion and like really support it. I don't know. It felt like a moment of being like, this man is now with us.
Yeah. I definitely think we're going to see him. And I kind of hope that we're going to see the guy who shot Sintra, like, do something heroic and die. And not that it's going to redeem him, but like, you know, that he's going to carry that and like try and make it right in some way.
Can we spend our last little bit of time we have talking about Mon Mothma and the Senate?
Yeah, let's talk about the party.
Even before the party, y'all, the way they had to say that oath at the end of the Senate session, like swear fealty to the Emperor and to the Empire, I was like, it kind of scared me a little bit. Yeah. And like every new iteration we see of the Senate looks more and more just like the actual area looks like higher end and like bougier, and like it's like just I think the bougier becomes the more the senators are just figureheads doing absolutely fucking nothing, and it just oh god, it made me feel gross watching it.
And I think it's supposed to, and I think and here's gonna be my hot take, like, yeah, it's supposed to be emblematic of like, you know, this is what people in like Nazi Germany had to do, and this is what people in like, you know, other authoritarian countries had to do. And in the 1950s, when one country was really, really scared of people being sympathizers with the communists and stuff like that, they came up with this idea that people had to have a pledge of allegiance. Like, that's the same kind of thing, you know? And like, I'm sure Congress members have done the pledge. I don't know if they've ever had to, you know, officially like that. And obviously this is supposed to be more extreme, but yeah, it's supposed to make us think about all these kind of like loyalty tests that we're supposed to go through. And I think all of that, and like, not to get us back to the Gorman stuff, but yeah, the stuff like that was happening on Gorman, I thought in a similar way was just very much made to like get us thinking about like, yeah, this is how it is slow, it's methodical, but like they're just, you know, controlling thoughts now, and not just like you got to go to this place or do pay these taxes or whatever.
Well, just one more very quick comment just on that. It's just ever in the last, I mean, almost 10 years almost now, I feel like when I go to a sporting event or I go to somewhere where like everyone sings the national anthem, like I think about it so differently. Because as a kid, I would just sing song along, like, you know, oh, say, can you see, like whatever. It was just like, you know, a song, and like didn't really realize, I don't know, everything that like it meant. And like it's interesting that like, you know, that, you know, national anthems and pledges of allegiance literally to the flag that you make children say it's just I'm not gonna get overly political, but like it's just really interesting that you're making like, in the real world this happens and they're drawing attention to it again in Andor of like
Yeah.
people just say it, they kind of don't even think about it half the time and what it means, but like as a child, you're literally like swearing fealty to the American flag and God, and that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. I mean,
And so it
God.
just really puts a spotlight on that in Star Wars, which I really appreciated.
it's been more than 2 decades since 9/11, and still at a lot of sporting events, not only do you do those, but like you ask the God of everybody to bless one particular country. We sing "God Bless America" over and over and again. It's
And here in the
blasphemous as
South,
long as.
there are actual prayers said over sporting events.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. One other quick last thing I want to say about the Gormans, just in that, and
Yes.
then please let's go back to the party and Mon Mothma and all of it. But like I talked before about how like the indigeneity of a lot of these people is being brought up, and I loved again that they were speaking their own language, that they had their own traditions, and I thought again it was just like, by the way, if you didn't get the idea here that we're showing you that like white indigeneity is treated differently than like Cassian's people of like brown people and stuff like that. Did you catch their language? Like I don't know if it was two different languages or kind of two dialects, but like sometimes it sounded an awful lot like French, and other
Yeah.
times it sounded an awful lot like German.
I picked up on that as well.
I definitely picked up on some of the German.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know if there was exact words at all they used, but certainly just like the inflections, the accents, and stuff like that. I thought that was very intentional. But yeah, let's talk about Mon Mothma and the party and all of that. And I'm gonna give my first complaint here, and it's a complaint about canonicity. And granted, it's because it's something that I particularly have really wanted. Here we go. If you have a number of people, including an Imperial officer, talking about art, why is Krennic not making a comment about, oh, Admiral Thrawn would love this? Or, gosh, I wish I could hear what Admiral Thrawn would have to say? Like,
Ooh.
some throwaway comment, because we know Krennic is, like, deeply engaged in his rivalry with Thrawn right now at this point in time. And we know that Thrawn is really well known for his love of art and him really loving, like, and Krennic is kind of making fun of them for getting so into these artistic conversations. I was a little bummed that we didn't have a Thrawn reference. I'm being half joking, of course, but like it would have been such a perfect way just to remind us all that that great character exists.
It would have been a really fun name drop, like to just throw it in like that.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe wouldn't have caught it because I was really locked into Clea and Lonnie.
Oh God, yeah, them trying to like get.
I was
that
like,
spy camera.
my heart was pounding, y'all. My heart was pounding watching this last episode. But I think almost it's more disrespectful of him to talk about art and mock art and not even mention the guy who fucking loves it.
That's what my brain went as well, because Krennic was just, he said it ignorant and was just shitting on it. And like the whole time I was thinking like Krennic and Thrawn are constantly sparring, and this is just another thing. Like, we see in Rebels Thrawn ready to fucking kill an Imperial officer because he doesn't respect art, like Twi'lek art. And if Thrawn could hear what Krennic was saying, whoa, mama.
Yeah.
But that entire scene made me like, again, my skin was like crawling. I was so stressed, like between like Lottie and Clea, like trying to like get the freaking listening device out, and like the tension between like Mon Mothma. Just, I love that woman more and more every episode. She's just like so carefully going like tit for tat with Krennic, just being like just destroying everything he says, but like in a way that like borderlines on like treason without fully crossing it yet. Oh, it was cool. I don't know. And every time I see Krennic on screen, I really enjoy his presence and his acting. He does a really great job of playing the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, he is so good. And I sent you guys a TikTok of it. If you haven't found them, Google the actor's name. I think it's like Mike Mickelson. I'm not going to try to remember it now.
I'll look it up.
Tell me quickly, and then I'll.
Ben Mendelsohn.
There, okay. And even that actor who plays Krennic, I've been sending my co-hosts here, Ben Mendelsohn, search for some of his interviews, because he's been giving interviews that the actor is so sassy and so perfect. He's like the next generation of Ian McKellen. I love him so much. And he clearly he's having so much fun in this role. And I also agree with you, like the way Mothma is so kind of restrained and holding back. it makes me feel like it's not going to be that like Gorman she slips and goes a little bit too far. It's that she has very carefully built this, you know, idea of herself as she's the loyal opposition, and that with Gorman she's going to shatter that, and that we're building to that. And sometimes it is hard to make a prequel because you know that these people are going to live and these people are going to die and here's what's going to happen and all this stuff. I feel like this is such a masterclass in how to make a prequel where you can use the fact of what we're building towards to build suspense, to build wonder, and to build tension.
Yeah, it's making me appreciate the Krennic we see in Rogue One even more and more, and like I just and even at the root of all of this, the galas being thrown at these, like, I don't. It's just like you think back to the Republic, like the parties that were being thrown. Like I think of the Clone Wars, it was like little gatherings of senators in Padme Amidala's home, or like very like small. And these are like massive galas, and I looked it up, and like apparently like some of these were held in the Imperial Palace, which is the repurposed Jedi Temple by the Emperor, and it's just the extravagance becomes so great, and it's like Palpatine basically mollifies the Senate by just like making them all really wealthy, which again is a hallmark of fascism that we see happening in the world today. It's really it's just like you said, it's a masterclass not only in making a prequel, but in like just showing the rise of fascism and Palpatine's like grand plan and how genius it was to continue to consolidate power to the point where he was able to dissolve the Senate in A New Hope.
Yep.
I have something to say about the party.
Please do.
Please.
Who the fuck was that man that talked to Mon and Perrin? Because that was not Bail Organa.
That's okay. Where is Jimmy?
Where is Jimmy?
That's why I made myself. Where is Jimmy? I looked into this. The claim is that they couldn't get the actor. Jimmy Smits is the one who plays Bail Organa in like every other live action version. They couldn't find a way to get his schedule to fit. What that means to me is that Bail Organa is going to have a larger role in either the next arc or the arc after that. And because if it was just his one-off cameo, I'm sure they could have brought him in for a day. But it just what upsets me is I almost would have rathered you delay the release of Andor a few more months to get this actor back in this role, because it's Bail is such an iconic role, and the same actor has played him in Rogue One, the Obi-Wan series, the prequels, like in all of his iterations over decades of time. It's not like a recast of a character that showed up briefly in one TV show. So it was really jarring to me, and really bothered me a lot, actually.
I think I was not jarred at all because I knew it was coming, and I did actually think the actor felt a lot like Bail. He had the charm, his accent was similar, the kind of like I'm connecting with you, Mon, in a way that like other people can't quite tell. Like it felt very Bail to me. But also I think Jimmy Smits is getting pretty old. Like that may have also been a part of it. I don't know. I certainly, there's nothing Jimmy Smits has done to anger anybody. Like I think that this is just they did their best, and frankly, if that's the one casting that they weren't able to put together of all the stuff they do, this is still an A+ to me in terms of casting.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Benjamin Bratt, I think is his name. Good for you on the role. Like you said, he did a pretty decent job. But yeah, that was wild to me. I took very few notes on this episode, and this was one of them. Because it's just like having seen Bail in the prequels and then watching the Clone Wars, and it's like that's just Bail in my head for everything, for every book, for everything I've ever like consumed that mentions him. So it was pretty damn jarring for me, at least. But there's a good chance you're right, Alex. You said kind of the thing about him maybe having a bigger role in a future thing of some kind. Was it you that said that?
Oh.
Yeah, Alex was saying that.
Okay.
Well,
so you cut out there for a second for me.
I think also there's something to be said there for, the things we see when we're young probably have a much bigger effect on us. Like, I was an adult when I saw Jimmy Smits, and Bale has a pretty small role in those movies that I didn't think I kind of wanted to see more of him. But like, it took me a long time to buy Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, because to me, like, he wasn't Alec Guinness, and I was like, what the hell are we doing here? So yeah, I totally think it makes sense. Like, especially I think the things we see when we're younger and that really have that, like, imprinting on us. Like, it's hard to see that recast, and I want to both like say that that's not my experience with it with Bale, but I totally legitimize like why it would be really hard for you guys, and not like patronizing way. Like,
And,
yeah,
and to be
I've done that too with other characters.
to be fair, like, I'm not. This is absolutely no shade to Benjamin Bratt. I'm sure he's going to do an amazing job. He like was a very convincing, Bale, but like it's just like you said, it's just jarring to me. It would be like if any other like actor would just reply. It was also like why it took me, even though I knew it was coming, like when I saw the Solo movie, not seeing Harrison Ford as
You froze on us.
Solo movie, I was like okay with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, to
sorry, what did
me,
I freeze?
that guy Aaron just didn't feel at all like Solo, but that's a whole other story that it turns out we did a whole
Yeah, but my
review
point
on.
in that was just that like
Yeah.
it was just a similar feeling of like Harrison Ford was and always will be Han Solo, so it's kind of hard to put those together. And Bale is obviously a much smaller role, but it just I don't know. Like Aaron said, like even his likeness is even shown in the Clone Wars. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
I see Bale a very certain way. But just to kind of put this to bed, I found the exact quote from the interview with Tony Gilroy said, "Quote." It's really hard to bring legacy characters back for a whole variety of reasons, money and scheduling. And I mean, Jimmy Smith just wasn't available. It didn't work out. He was doing his other show, and we were under the gun, and they couldn't work it out. They just couldn't work it out. Believe me, we really tried, but it couldn't happen. So it seems like it really just was a scheduling conflict, but it just makes me really sad.
I mean, and I
Yeah.
will say this is obviously a much larger issue, but to me, this is one reason why, like, I want Andor. But after that, I'd really be happy if we didn't have anything else in the Skywalker years. Like, give us more stories with totally new characters and totally new actors, because we're now telling stories about characters that we've been telling for 50 years. Like, we can't let's there. I don't want to recast Luke. I don't want to recast Han. I don't. I just want new characters. I think you're right. There's always going to be this struggle once we start getting into the second and third generation of actors playing the same characters.
One
Yeah.
very, very, very 10-second thing. I will say I am happy, though, they chose to recast Bale instead of opting for a CGI deepfake.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
agree with
could.
that.
I mean, hey, in Rogue One, they did that with Tarkin. They've done it with Leia. They've
But they were past.
chosen to do that with Luke in many different Star Wars properties. They chose to do deep fake faces. So I'm okay with the recast instead of that.
Yeah, I think
I
that.
agree. That's much better.
Yeah, to me that would be even a bridge too far. Yeah, I don't like the deep. Yeah, you've heard us discuss those topics before. So
Yeah, but I just wanted to give them credit for that.
yep. We do want to have some bonus content. We're gonna have some next week. This week, all three of us are incredibly pressed for time. But I will say that last night, and Aaron, I know you got your hand up. We will. I'm not gonna put that. And this isn't the final comment. I'm just kind of saying that. Last night, all of us went to go see Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and we will talk about that as our bonus content next week. So it's one more good reason to sign up to become a member. $5 a month, $55 a year. All the information is on our show notes. Aaron, why don't you close this out?
I was actually also about to shout that out because I think something that got me so much about the Bale and Mon thing is that we just read Mask of Fear, which is very much about the two of them.
Yeah.
So I was just so deep in it, and I forgot that they hadn't interacted in this show yet.
Yeah.
I was like just assuming he was there in season 1. I had to look it up just now. But my final notes, I wrote down something that Bix said to Andor because she was having a really hard time, with him coddling her. But he had, killed a young soldier when they went to do some mission, and that was really bothering her. And he kept saying, like, it's a war, it's a war. And she said to him, you didn't kill that boy because it's a war. You killed him because he saw my face.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Andor said, what's the difference? And she went, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, if that ain't the most clear explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's making the war entirely about her. And she's like, nah, I don't want that. Don't put me on that pedestal.
Mhm.
All right. Well, once again, awesome episodes. Thank you guys so much. Listeners, let us know what you think. We will come back in a week.
Stay classy, Gorman.
May the force be with you.
What's the difference?
Live long and prosper.